Good evening, everybody. This is your captain speaking. If you look to your left, you can see a sad man.
Oh, come on.
We're currently flying at 60,000 feet, 50,000 feet, 40,000 feet. Needless to say, we are plummeting out of the sky and we will soon be crash landing.
You survived a traumatic plane crash. Hooray! And you found yourself in a ravine. So all that's left is for you and your fellow survivors to try and survive the perils of night, forage for food, survive long enough to hopefully be rescued, and more importantly, not die. Last one to have survived a plane crash. That's a cool story. So, starting out, you need to just see how you are after the plane crash. And you do that by taking half of your health tokens here and just casting them into the wind. Oh god.
Once you've worked out who's most likely to die, it's time to go out into the wicked, wild wilderness and start your survival adventure. And this takes place over two phases, the daytime and the nighttime. And your daytime mostly pretty much comprises of going out into the wild and having a little forage for some hopefully delicious treats that might help you not die.
Okay team, let's see what we brought back. Oh, I managed to find some bits and pieces of food so we can eat. I found some loose bits of material that I just kind of jimmied together to form a knife.
I found a bear and it really messed me up. It's really bad out there, guys. Oh god.
Oh no! Turns out it's not all just fun in the sun on this island. Sometimes the things you find are bad. When you decide to go foraging, you flip over a number of your health tokens and then you draw cards equivalent to how many you just flipped over.
These cards can be all sorts of delicious, tasty treats such as, ho-ho, a tasty little grub. Or ho-ho-ho, a juicy wild plum. Juicy. Or, what's this? Oh my, an entire trout freshly tickled from a local stream? Oh, Ambassador, you do treat us well. And these mostly just replenish hearts, which is good, because otherwise you might, die. And hopefully you've managed to also replenish the hearts you've just used to go foraging. Other things you can stumble upon can be all sorts of various crafting tools and crafting equipment to hopefully build a sharp stick or a fire.
Or you could stumble upon an actual moose. Do you want to know what happens when you come across an actual moose? Let me put it this way. There's a reason you don't want to meet an actual moose in a dark alley late at night, and that's because this North American megafauna has a gun. Then finally, we have everyone's favourite, mushrooms. You ever go out on a walk and see some fun fungus out on the streets and, wonder whether or not it's safe to eat? Well, now you can continue with reckless abandon as you shovel every single possible thing you find into your awaiting cake hole and damn the consequences. Damn! There are consequences. You see, you might find that you've just gone and stuffed your face full of paralytic mushrooms, which means you no longer can use your arms for the rest of the day. Oof. Or you might flip over a cutlet and reveal So you might already begin to see just how this game can be quite silly, as you're basically just going out and about, foraging through this deck for fun bits and pieces, and sometimes you might not be able to move for the rest of the turn, and that's just quite fun. So that's how you spend your daytimes, but suddenly nighttime comes in which you have to face through a slew of terrible nightmares waiting to kill you.
Turns out nighttime in the wilderness is bad. you'll be coming across all sorts of things such as hungry cougars, hungry bears, hungry rain. Yeah, I know that last one doesn't quite work. But either way, each night you will flip one of the cards on the nighttime deck and reveal what new terrors you're going to be coming across. And these can do all sorts of things like ravage your bodies and really mess you up, or just steal a load of your equipment and just ruin your general day.
But then, night's over, everything's fine. Sure, someone died of a bear attack during the night, but everyone else is fine. I'm sure there's no long-lasting trauma brought about a near constant and unrelenting exposure to near death.
I am Captain Cranberries.
You see, if you end the night with but 1 health left, well, you take a trip on the SS Cranberries all the way to the Madness deck and flip over a card. These can have a whole variety of effects, whether it's disposing of resources around the table, half hurting another player, or just simply making an absolute fool of yourself in front of all of your friends. If you pulled something like that on the SS Cranberries, my ship, the SS Cranberries for me, Captain Cranberry, you'd be walking the plank in no time, you scallywag. This is where the game truly begins to shine, as you and your friends might find that you just encounter so many weird and strange effects, either through the night or while foraging, and it's just an element that's not strictly about game mechanics, because some of these are just silly. Like, is there a disadvantage to, I don't know, all of your limbs and bodily actions and just actions being controlled by someone who's already dead? No, probably not. But it is funny though. Sure, someone calling every single resource a flux lucer inducer might complicate things a little bit in discussion, but it'll also be funny. You see, Ravine is this incredibly breezy game that just kind of allows you and your friends to just kind of bounce off one another with an inherent silliness brought about through various effects and silly cards, simultaneously alongside that inherent need and focus to survive. Whether you're trying to decide on what tools you can possibly craft, whether or not might just be able to survive a bat attack during the night, or, if anyone gets the food and you just are deciding who lives and ultimately who dies. You see, there's enough room for everyone to get involved as this inherent silliness sweeps through the ravine of Ravine like a stiff, breezy gust of weirdness.
That is to say, sort of. Ravine is a simple game, and simple games are simple to play. But simple to play also can really mean quite easy to win. You see, if you've got a team that's just a little bit too on it, you're a bunch of survival experts on a flight to Survival Con featuring guest speakers, Bear Grylls, and an actual bear grilling, well, you're not going to have that much of a hard time, because the main gameplay mechanic or interaction element comes from the pushing your luck part, where you're off the forage deck, where you're trying to decide how many of your little hearts you flip over to, draw cards, and maybe you'll explode because you flipped over some bees. But at the same time, if you're kind of good at games, you will work out the best way to play this, and suddenly a lot of the gameplay mechanics, like the madness stuff, the things that add that
revelry,
kind of disappear. Risk of death? More like risk of bad breath from all those grubs you're eating.
My friends loved Ravine when we played it recently on a camping holiday. One of them went out and bought their own copy of the game. It's just quite fun and silly. But if you're a group of hardened, grizzled board gamers, you might find that you need to either drink heavily for that risk to bubble up, or you just have to take a little step back, relinquish control of the captain's cabin, and let someone else who might not be as experienced take charge. Also, there's an expansion the Spirits expansion to be precise. Got more than 6 players and who want to play Ravine? Ruin the experience for everyone by breaking out the Spirits expansion. It's just really bad. If I finally managed to understand these rules, which I did after my 6th read through of this tiny piece of paper, because let's be honest, they're kind of terrible, some of your friends take on the role of a cavalcade of spirits who at the very beginning of the game work out how many people they need to allow to live. You do this by taking one of their tokens and launching them into the air. And then once you've worked out who lives, who dies, well, you just kind of just spend the rest of the game going, ooh, spooky. They do this with their own unique deck of spooky spirit cards, which is just a wild assortment of forage, madness, and nighttime cards. Each spirit has a hand of 2 cards, and on your go, you get to choose whether or not you want to use one of those cards, either by placing it on the top of a deck or swapping it for whatever is already on the top.
Here's the thing. It's bad. It's just bad. The effects on all the cards are genuinely really fun and interesting. It adds so many interesting cards to the game that are genuinely fun to interact with. But the act of putting them into the game is so tedious and so annoying that it just becomes a bit of a bother. It is still cooperative. The spirits are trying to help. Sort of. But the thing is, once the correct number of living people are on the table, well, the spirits don't really have much else to do other than help you survive.
But 2 things here. 1, the game is just easy enough to really beat without the aid of any spirits. So, you don't really actually need to get involved in that aspect. And 2, playing cards is really quite difficult. You see, you only have a hand of 2 cards, right? And your hand only replenishes once you have played one of your cards. But you might not necessarily want to do that because, you're trying to not kill anyone or surviving perfectly fine by themselves. So you're just kind of left with the same 2 night cards that you don't want to use for the entire game, and you're basically not doing anything. I think the central idea was meant to be like, ooh, sometimes you have to play cards you don't want to, and make the game difficult for them when you don't want it to be difficult. Ooh! But here's the thing. You don't actually have to play a card each go. So why would you play a card each go when you don't want to play a card each go, when it's easier to just not play a card each go and still win? What? It's just really awkward and clunky to play and get involved in, because also there's a very easy chance that you just sort of overreach too quickly, and if the spirits go over the number of players that they needed to die quite early on, well, they've ultimately lost the game and there's not really any point for them to actually play anymore. Realistically, the Spirit expansion adds players to kind of act like a sort of group game master for the entire experience, as you might be able to pick funny cards to place into the game and hopefully improve everyone's enjoyment of their overall experience. Like, oh, wouldn't it be funny if we put this cursed mushroom into the deck so then this player basically can't die but also just constantly goes insane? Wouldn't that be a hoot? Sort of. But also basically kind of not. You see, it's just so not in line with the rest of the game. Normal Ravine is kind of focused on everyone kind of delighting in the game, in the shared experience. Haha, someone's like done something weird, but you might do something weird any moment now. With the spirits, you're either just kind of watching everyone play the game without you because you're not doing anything, or you're just playing so many effects, trying to partake in the experience, and ultimately probably overwhelming the team and leading to an early death of, well, everyone. I think possibly the best option is realistically to scrap the actual extra player part of it and the whole spirit aspect and instead just take all the cards that you get and just shuffle them into their respective decks, kind of adding just more variance, and some of the effects are really fun, and you just got a little extra spice to your life. Even if it is just rat birds. Oh god.
Overall, Ravine is a very simple, silly, but thematic game that is just a bit too easy for what it's trying to do. But it can be the perfect game to drop down in front of your gaggle of friends before, like, you know, the very start of a day, before introducing them onto something a little meatier, a little bigger, like a big human limb.
More of a social game than any of the strategic leanings might have you believe, Ravine is a game that fully relies on all the players throwing themselves heartily into the experience, as there's so much fun and taking place across the board, mostly above the table itself, with very silly rules and experiences that happen, such as players having to sing all the things they're doing, being unable to move. There's so much more of a social, fun dynamic to everything in this game that's just a delight. Sure, there's an expansion that is terrible and should be more so just left in the ground. For some, this game will be the perfect, like, light and breezy experience that they'd want to take on a long weekend, on a camping holiday with a bunch of friends, or as a nice intro game to a long day of board gaming where there's just enough of a zhuzh of social and fun to just, you know, wake everyone up in the day. But for others, this will be less of a wilderness survival experience to really get to grips with, and more of just, well, basically popping a tent up in your parents' back garden where nothing can go wrong. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm just gonna sit here and wait for the inevitable rescue that will surely come.
One eternity later.
It's been so long. I don't think anyone's coming back for me. I fear they've gone and forgotten about me. Oh, hello there, person I assume I'm imagining to really get through the isolation and loneliness. I just made a video about a board game called Ravine. It's the thing you just watched. If you liked it, let me know in the comments. Let me know what you think. If you played Ravine, let me know about Ravine. If you have any other ideas for videos about board games, let me know about those as well. Otherwise, you can click over here, in which there will be a video about Inscription, which is an incredible game that you should definitely watch the video of as well, because I think it's quite a fun and dumb video. Otherwise, down here, there will be a video about a board game, but it's within a video game. Specifically the board game in Horizon Forbidden West, and how that's, just, you know, watch it, find out. Otherwise, you can click on my face to subscribe to my channel. Otherwise, thank you and goodbye.